Good evening, everyone, and welcome. We're going to start the meeting, and if we could start the meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance. So I know we're not all together, but I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, under God, indivisible,
one and justice for all.
Justice for
World. Yes.
all. Thanks, everyone. So as we begin the agenda, I would like to first approve the minutes from our last, which was on March 10th. If I could have someone make a motion.
Motion to approve the meetings on March 10th.
I'll
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you. And as we look at the properties for the public hearing, the first one is 26 Germain Avenue. However, we're going to table that until the next meeting, which will be April 14th. We will also be tabling 7 Marsden Street, 12 Marsden Street, and 15 Marsden Street, also to our next meeting, which is April 14th. So I will make a motion to table all 4, the 26th Germain, 7 Marsden, 12 Marsden, and 15 Marsden. If someone could second that?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, great, thank you. And now we will move to the consent agenda. If someone can make a motion to address the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion for the consent agenda. 108 Main Street, 410 Main Street, 63 Rysam Street, and 271 Madison Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. Now we will move on to old business. And the first item that we have there is 11 Spring Street.
Hi.
There they are.
So first we want to thank you for painting, doing the paint samples for us so we could get a sense of what they look like. Zach, did you get a chance to get by?
Yes, I did. And my only comment is I think the greater the contrast, the better. Because in the original, whatever the original paint scheme would have been, the idea was that they were contrasting colors, not like close and harmonious, but really quite different. So I would only say that the closer you can get to the spirit of that would be appropriate to the style of the building.
Most appropriate, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that really sums it up well of how a lot of the members of the board are feeling. I do think where we could see where you had the shiny paint versus the matted, that helps. So if you were to do the black shiny paint on the trim and on the rafters versus flat on the walls, but a much lighter, I would say from this, even the samples of gray, I think a lighter gray,
The lightest.
either the lightest that you have, or if you could even go lighter.
Can I share my screen?
Yes.
And also, just so you know, the we had meant to paint the black in gloss, but Emporium had run out of the base of the gloss that the historic color goes on. So that was the closest they could approximate for us, but we would paint the trim or gloss.
Okay, great.
Did you just share this?
I don't think so.
Maybe.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
You guys see the,
Yes,
You
Yep.
did colour script.
so
Number
would it be
2.
safe to say that number 2 would be the most acceptable?
Out of the 4.
Of the 4, yes.
Mhm.
Do you
a
think it's
little
enough?
lighter on the gray. Yeah.
Could you go,
Shade lighter.
yeah, 1 or 2 shades lighter than that Chelsea gray?
The other greys in the historic collection seem to be quite a lot lighter. I could go back to them. I mean, the Chelsea grey was definitely a decent bit lighter than both the Kendall and the slate that we'd originally.
And this is what was the sample that was put up in the black is actually eggshell. It's not the high
Yeah.
gloss.
Yeah, I just
Mhm.
explained that.
Alright.
They'd run out. in
Yep.
Emporium. So that would be high gloss on the black.
That would be fine, because I do think that would make it
Kind of pop.
the best contrast on the dark side with the gloss. It's just of the grays that you demonstrated, they're still somewhat in the darker category.
Mhm.
So even lighter.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I guess we could go back to the historic colors. I mean, that was just my recollection. I mean, we've done a lot of the stick-on swatches before, and most of the historic colors, it seems to kind of take a jump from these down to something very light.
Good. Can I ask a question? Could we, do you guys have the historic samples that you could show us right now? Do you have the book that gives all the different colors? Could we see, like, I'm just trying to, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to move this along. Is it possible for us? Is it possible for us, even if as we have these guys come back tonight and show us the lightest gray that they could go with? And so we could, like I say, move on this tonight. That's just a suggestion.
I would agree with that. I believe Christian would too.
I mean, I'm fine with number 2. I think that's okay as.
I am too, but if you know, if there is a lighter gray that maybe, you know, if we don't see it, we don't know. And if we could, it would help to make a decision between the two.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that good with the owners? Could you guys,
Come to the municipal building?
or,
I mean, we
or
could put it up.
Or
It's
just
a
show
little
us.
subjective on having not seen it on the side of the building, you know, because obviously colors, particularly grays, you know, there's a lot of blue, there's a lot of yellow, there's
Mhm.
more taupey grays.
I'm trying to,
Like that doesn't look blue
this isn't
there.
showing up.
Yeah, but that looked very blue when we tried it on the side. Ironically, the one Rory just pulled up is actually called Brewster Grey. So we like the name. But
when I
when
look,
we put-
yeah,
when we put that on,
That
the-
was darker than.
yeah, and
that
also when
looks
we put that on
darker.
the side of the building, it was very blue.
Coventry gray. I love that one. That
And
looks
they all
like,
look great on that. They look great on screen. And then
yeah, I
it's-
know, I understand.
That's-
Some
I
of the
can't even
pictures
find-
the pictures that I looked at, it looked more blue than gray to me. You know, when I first looked at it, I thought you were going with a blue.
Right.
Correct. And we've since tried, in an attempt to make more contrast, we went to more of a putty gray for the
Mhm.
facade. Which
Mhm.
now I'm not able to even
Which I
find
think
here.
might be this,
This
one of those two.
Chelsea gray,
Chelsea Grey, yeah.
which looks very brown
looks
on
really
screen.
brown on the screen, but that's number 2 in the pictures, and that's the one that's painted to the right.
Hmm.
And it looks extremely brown and taupey if you put it up on the screen.
Mhm.
But that's
No,
the
it's very
Chelsea
brown.
Grey Yeah, and that's the one that's on the side of the building. That's number 2 in those pictures.
Okay.
That's almost white.
The shades of red.
So yeah, it's a little deceiving coming off the ones that are listed, and then the
Well, that's a nice pale gray, that cliffside.
Mhm.
Pale,
Yeah.
kind of. I mean, it's a neutral gray. It's not green or it's not blue. It's kind of a better gray, but it's hard to know what that'll look like on the building.
Have you tried to put the cliffside gray on anywhere?
I don't know specifically the cliffside. I don't recall the name, but the Coventry, the Brewster, the Stonington. I mean, we did. You know, you can get the stick-on swatches because we hadn't, wanted to paint myriads of colours onto the building. But we did the stick-on swatches of most of the greys in that collection. The platinum.
We did this one.
Yeah,
for
we did
sure.
do platinum. That's charcoal
See,
slate,
there-
which was
That
the
was,
original.
that was the original one, which
Very
It's too
dark.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
And then that's the booth bay. Yeah, we did look at that.
This ended up looking green on
Mhm.
in the sticker swatch.
And the
Yep.
Brewster was very blue. I remember
Right.
that. Yeah,
Phillipsburg.
That's
yeah.
very
Yeah.
blue.
yeah, and that's very blue. Yeah, and then as we say, like the Chelsea looks brown here, but that's actually the one that's on the building, and it's quite
Mm.
grey. It's like a warm grey in real life, but it doesn't look anywhere near this brown.
Right.
So it's it's a little hard until it's in situ.
I don't know. It's paint. I'm not. I understand what Zach, is saying, that we want the contrast. My feeling is that we have enough contrast. Would you go back to that?
Go back to the
I'm
full pictures.
I'm trying to get back on the Zoom.
Thanks.
I have like Zoom in kind of minimized mode, and I can't stop sharing my screen.
But if you just go back to
Maybe
the paint colours
can you
there.
There you go.
There we
There
go.
we
you do see-
I mean,
Well, what we said was number 2 has the
Yeah.
most contrast.
yes, I
Yeah.
think
And I
number
think-
2 will work.
And
if
the
we
walls
do
are-
that in a high gloss, that's a
Mhm.
matte. So
And the
if we
black
do
and
a
the high gloss, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a vote.
I'll make that motion for
I'll second
the
it.
paint scheme for number 2, his Chelsea gray with the trim historic black,
In high gloss.
high gloss, high gloss black, eggshell
Oak
facade.
shade facade. Yeah.
190. Okay, all in favor? All right,
Aye.
okay, great.
Great.
We have one more thing. This was if you had approved number 1, we wouldn't be asking on this, but since we're going with number 2 and it's black, we do have sconces.
Yeah, we have to replace the sconces on the front of those kind of not quite wired, but the kind of square glass that you see the light bulb in, and they're obviously
Mhm.
very old.
Right.
And I know you favour the downwards lit.
Mhm.
Perfect.
So
I think
ones
it's
that
good.
this would be appropriate.
Yes. And what's the name of that light? Do we have a name for it?
It's called the Franklin Ironworks Arnett 10.5-inch high black outdoor wall light.
Okay.
And that is in flat.
It is in black. Yeah, it is in black. I wouldn't have presented it if number 2 paint scheme wasn't selected. But since it is, well,
I mean, I think that's fine.
Mhm.
Okay. That seems great.
All
So
right, great.
we,
Well, thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you for yours too.
thank you.
thanks for all your effort. And we look forward to coming and tasting.
That,
Yes, well, hopefully we can provide refreshments on your next visit.
Thank you very much.
Very nice.
that gray will make that little pink sign really pop.
Yes, it will.
Great,
Thank you, everyone.
wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
everyone.
very much. Okay, so now I guess it's signing away.
I feel like I should be able to move it. I don't think so.
We don't-
No, it's crazy.
I know.
Oh, Kathy is here.
Okay, while I'm just finalizing this, is by any chance is Charlie and Karen here?
They are, at least his wife is. It says Kathy.
There he is.
There he is. Woohoo.
Aloha.
You lucky guy.
How's everybody?
But good.
Charlie, I hope you're having fun.
You're home now, aren't you, Charlie? No, not yet.
I am, yes.
he's home.
Yeah.
I hope you're still having fun.
Yeah. Hey, Charlie,
I'll take the stuff underneath.
all right, Charlie, given that it's been a while since we've had a conversation on this,
Right.
why don't you bring us up to date on what you'd like to do, and then we can discuss and have a vote.
I'd like to start framing the porch tomorrow morning. I do have some good news, though. I have a good friend of mine who's volunteered at no charge to build the door for the basement.
Ah,
So he's gonna match the same door that's on the first floor. I'm gonna make it out of, I guess, mahogany. I guess that's would be the best way. So anyway, I think Bethany knows him, Chuck Latanzio.
oh, yes. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So I'm actually meeting with him tomorrow, and we're gonna go over everything. And so he said he was going to build the door for free, but he didn't say he was going to install it for free. So I'm assuming I have to pay to have it installed. So, but I would trust him to do it than anybody else. So I'm sure that he's going to do it. You know.
I would agree with that.
Okay, great. So the garden floor or the lower level will have a door that you will do the exact same as the first floor original door. And
Yeah.
will you still paint that red as well? Okay.
Yes. I'll match the same. I'm gonna repaint that door up in the first floor also, so I'll use the same color. And I'm old fashioned. I still use oil paint, so.
I'm sure it'll be good. A good paint
Okay.
job.
So the bigger item is really where we are with the porch, and the final of how the porch will look.
You have the final drawing, right? That, the architect done?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, these were changed. Can Heather put that up, or is that not possible?
Me?
No, not yet.
Oh,
Looking for it. I thought he was,
I might have.
January
oh,
20,
this is what we wanted, right? We
Yeah.
wanted two posts.
January 20th.
It has the new roof, right?
Show us.
You have to do it, 'cause I-
What?
Or-
I thought the roof was,
no.
no,
You want to do Yeah, that looks good.
There you go. Can
I
you
think-
pick it up a little bit, Christian? Just a little bit? Too much, too much. Right there.
It doesn't look like it's changed all that much.
No, there isn't. No, the way
So,
you wanted is, you wanted the roof, we had to change the roof,
Right, of the porch.
right?
Yeah.
And they wanted to see what the door was gonna look like in the basement. So I guess originally, after back and forth, when I first got the estimate for build that door was $8,000. I'm not spending $8,000 on a door, but anyway, then we picked out one that was a 6-panel, so you agreed to that.
yes,
But, you know, I would rather match the same door, so.
Well,
Since
we're not
Chuck-
really, I'm sorry, but I thought we had already moved past the door. I thought we were talking about the porch.
porch, yep,
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, looks the same as
Right.
before. And we talked about the roof needing to reach both ends to align with the
I
side
see.
walls. And for the posts to be,
The post
Arrange-
can't be changed. Post has got to stay right where it is. That's where the architect wants it.
well, your architect doesn't know where they're supposed to be.
What
Well,
is
you
this?
can't- If you space the post evenly, the post would be in the middle of a window.
Right,
You don't want a post in the middle of the window. And that's because we had to step the roof back because you wouldn't have enough height to walk down the stairs. You'd hit your head on the
uh-huh.
header for the porch.
I didn't have an opportunity to come in and see these drawings today. When were they submitted? I haven't seen them. To me,
2
this
months
is,
ago.
these are the January,
these are the January drawings.
Yeah.
Okay. And
This is the last one.
okay, I believe at the last meeting, it was suggested that the design be changed.
To
Now, if
what?
there's
Go ahead, Zach.
as I said before, the roof should align with the side walls. So that means it should be about a foot or so longer on either side.
Of the porch, correct? Is that what
Porch
you
roof, right. It shouldn't be stepped in as it is now. And
Well,
it seems,
But the Zach, the porch is stepped in.
that's what I said.
It's lining up with the end of the porch.
What's
Each end.
lining up? No, I said the
roof.
porch,
The roof is right now.
it does not reach to the full length of the front facade.
He wants it to go all the way to the end of each side of the house. Correct,
Which-
Zach?
Right. And that's what we discussed at the last meeting.
I don't remember discussing that at all.
Well, that is specifically what I suggested, and that would give greater space between the posts. All
Why
this
is
was-
that? How would you accomplish that?
Well, it would be helpful if your architect was on this call because he's the guy who's putting all this down on a piece of paper. If you look, in other words, what he has, his concept, which is not historical, it's an aesthetic choice, but it's not based upon anything historical. He wants the two posts the two left-hand posts to flank apparently the actual doorway, which is on the house wall behind it. So they line up with the doorway. Okay, and that means that the left-hand most post all the way to the left
Mhm.
can't be all the way at the end of the facade, because then it's not symmetrical in his aesthetic mind. But he's not basing what he's drawn on any historical example. It's just his aesthetic feeling about the way it should be. And this was discussed,
It
at some
was-
length at the last meeting.
Right, a couple months ago, right, Zach?
Because-
It's
right,
a
because
long time ago.
Those four posts, no matter where the windows are, and we've already had a discussion about whether this house had a porch to begin with or not. If those posts end up sitting in front of one of the windows, this tells me it probably didn't. But we're beyond that point now because you poured the foundation and we're all ready to go and frame it up. So now we want to try to make it look right and being recessed in from the end walls. We discussed this at considerable length. I think the notes would show this.
Yeah,
And that would enable those posts, I believe, I'm not the architect, but he's supposed to be dealing with this. I believe it would enable you to spread those posts out further, at least the two ends, and
So,
achieve.
so what you're saying is you want me to move the posts, the porch all the way to the end of the house?
On both ends.
You
Just,
can't do that. Zach, you don't
Just-
understand. You're
just
not,
What
the
don't I
roof.
understand?
the steps going down to the front, to the door in the basement have to
Yeah.
come from the right. You wouldn't have enough headroom. Your head would hit the header of the porch. That's why the porch is stepped back 2 feet from the end of the house. If I
Zach?
made the
Okay, what
if I
I'm,
made
oh, no,
the
wait,
porch go
no.
all the way to the
No,
end of
no,
the
no, no.
house,
That does not affect the height. If you're saying when you come up the steps and you attempt to step onto the deck of the porch floor,
no, I'm talking about the other end,
No, the basement
he's saying
steps.
the ones underneath.
basement stairs going down to the basement door.
okay, and how does this affect that?
You could see that the top of the step, which is right here, if the deck were to come all the way out here, I think I can see what he's saying.
Well,
I'm sorry, guys, this is what I thought, Zach, that you just want the roof, not the whole porch.
but what they're saying is that by extending the actual structural frame of the porch, the post, the roof, the floor, the whole thing to the right, so that it reaches all the way and aligns with that side wall,
Uh-huh,
that it's going to make accessing that area underneath it more difficult.
yes.
Well, that can be addressed by bringing
Without
the
hitting your
steps
head.
out further.
It's
step-
impossible. You'd hit your head when you're going down.
If the steps are too close to the porch, if they're stepped out an extra foot, you'd have the space
But
to go
here's the
down.
other problem. The steps can't go out further,
Right,
more than maybe a foot after, because the property line is only about a foot past the house.
right.
So, okay. So what we're saying is that the final design of this must be controlled by factors other than this has to do with the alignment of the property. And all of this was discussed before the architect put pen to paper, and all of this was supposed to be feasible. Now the board, I think, is being put in a very compromising position to be asked to approve something that is architecturally and from a design standpoint not correct. And I feel that that's really fair for the board to have to compromise and approve a design based upon site limitations and headroom and the setback and all this business. All of that should have been figured out ahead of time to determine whether or not this entire concept was feasible. So I can't add anything more. All I can say is that the design as presented doesn't really have any historical precedent, and I'm
Zach,
Quite-
I do want to understand one thing,
Yeah.
and maybe I'm totally wrong here. I think I probably am. But
Mhm.
what I understood with your discussion just a little while ago, that it
Mhm.
was just the roof we were going to bring out. That the,
However,
to do
yeah,
that, can the porch stay one side? Can the porch be a little smaller
it can't
than
be.
the roof?
Well, I don't want to interrupt you,
I mean,
Bethany, but the
I'm
concept
good,
is,
I'm done.
no, you're absolutely right. But the roof should be the same length, you know, if you're measuring the length of the entire
Right,
facade,
right.
that shouldn't overhang the floor
It shouldn't.
no, the floor and the roof should be the same width. They should be the full width of the house. And what that does is it enables the posts to not
Okay.
be squished together. That means the end posts would in turn go out about a foot or so, and you would have them more evenly spaced. So they all sort of go together. Sure, the roof can overhang on one end or the other. It doesn't affect what Charlie's talking about, but it doesn't answer the problem of the floor being stepped back in. And I think what we're lacking in this conversation is this, in effect, although there is no photograph, there's no drawing, there's no evidence, as it turns out, that this ever existed. What was requested of this board was for Charlie to enable him to reconstruct a feature that would seem to be appropriate to the house, and it would give him a porch. And we have lots of examples of these. But this is not about going to an architect and getting a porch designed, because in effect, this is really a restoration of a feature that could have, should have been there. It's not just, can I put a porch on my house?
Do you
I mean,
think,
Charlie, you've already done that on the back. You've built up a whole porch, with staircases and whatnot on the back of the house, which you've never, that's never been represented as a historical feature. That was something that accommodates your present day use of the building, all of that. The front is different. You came to the board asking if you could, in effect, restore something. Well, designing something the way you want it to fit, and the architect can't do this, he doesn't know that. That's not restoration. That's, I want to build a porch.
Zach,
And
can
unfortunately,
I ask you a quick question, Zach, about the time period and that it being, we think, right, that door that's
1840,
underneath, right, went
Mhm.
into the house because it could have been
it
whatever.
very
right?
unusual. Yes.
So,
yeah, very unusual.
so would they have that door there without something over it? Do you
There
think?
could have been a staircase that went down, and
Just a staircase, no porch.
yeah.
It
And I
could have
think,
been.
Charlie, when you excavated that areaway that runs along the front wall, which will be underneath the porch floor, you discovered that when you went down a little deeper, that very jagged stone foundation is projecting out from the more evenly finished
Bricks. What are they?
foundation above the grade. Yeah. And so, I mean, you can see that it would be kind of treacherous to walk along the side of that house the way it was built, because there was no regard for creating a safe passage along the front of that house. So it would seem that the access down into that doorway underneath the stoop was achieved with a staircase that may have been next to the one that goes up. I mean, we don't have an evidence of that. But I admit it's a challenging design, and I feel this board should accommodate you in whatever way possible but to half build something and then to be in this situation where the architect doesn't want to do that and all this. This is not really this is not the way that this board usually proceeds. So I'm unhappy with the design because it doesn't look authentic, if you will. But it's
Jack,
new
what
anyways.
about extending the porch?
Are you?
Sorry.
Is that Christian?
What about extending the porch all the way to the ends of the house and then cutting a stairwell into the right side, so you have the headroom,
Mhm.
which you won't be able to see from the front
Coming in
face
off
of
the
the.
driveway? Coming
What's
in
that? Yeah,
coming
on the
in off
driveway side.
Right, instead of coming down from the front, coming in from the side.
Side.
Absolutely.
I thought that's what he was doing.
No, I believe the way the concrete's been poured now is the stairs come in with the street behind you, come down in the same way that the stairs on the other end go up. So they're approaching the front of the house. And what Christian's referring to is the access underneath could come in off the driveway.
Yes.
Now, of course, Charlie has already had his guy pour that foundation that way, but that wasn't,
But they're just tubes. It's not like it's a full foundation.
right.
So
Well, that would
that's easy
answer. Okay,
Go
you're
report.
the builder, so you
Go
can see
ahead,
that.
Christian. What were you
You
gonna
could
say?
just use sonotube. I mean, those look like sonotubes on the plan. And to excavate that, you just auger them and throw a sonotube in and pour it. Reframing it might take a little bit, but I think that that's probably your cheapest and best option.
The stairs are already in.
Right, I see that.
But Charlie. just- yeah, no problem.
Echoes.
This is the issue that you were building things without the permit. And this is where when Zach tried to come and say, this is what we need so that it can stay historical, have some real genuine representation of the time period of when the house was built. We weren't able to authenticate or see that or prove in any way that there was a long porch there. We said we would make the exception to work with you and allow you to put the long porch, but that the porch would have to be truly representative of that time period. So unfortunately, yes, your contractor went and poured these stairs and put these pilings, but it looks as if you're gonna have to make some changes in order to have it be approved. So we want to work with you to figure out how you can do it the most efficiently. But we need to get to, and perhaps if the way the columns are, could you have them framed right up against the door as you look to expand it on both the right and the left? You could then move them and not have one in front of a window. We understand that's one of your goals you're trying not to do. But it can't just be the way your architect wanted to have symmetry in his mind. It has to be representative of the historical time period.
I don't know what to say. I submitted this plan and I thought we had the whole deal on the porch settled because we went over
No.
15 things and I did all the other 14 things except this post. Now I can just move the post. I'll put it in front of a window if you want them all evenly spaced.
But it's not just evenly spaced. It's also lengthening the width on both the right.
Yeah, it's too late for that. Can't do it. And you wouldn't be able to, I don't know why nobody seems to understand this. When you walk down the stairs to access the basement door, you have to have a certain amount of clearance so you don't hit your head on the rafters that are holding up the porch.
We understand that.
And the only way to do that was to step the porch back 2 feet.
You could go around it like a, how do I explain this?
You can come in from the side is what's being suggested and not come in from the front. And this is something that we've been discussing consistently. If we look back at the discussion from the very beginning, and this is really kind of the most important thing, whether the door has underneath the porch, which you can't see anyway, whether that has 6 panels. We already agreed on some other kind of a door because that's a secondary issue. It's barely seen, what configuration of panels, was never, we've never made a big issue out of that. I have consistently in written emails as well as in these transcripts have pointed to the fact that the porch needs to be equal to the width of the house. And your architect seems to be focused on placing these posts where he thinks they ought to be, but I would suggest that he probably doesn't have all that much background in this to make that judgment. And so if you or he had been open listening to what was being suggested, I don't think you would have gotten to the point where the steps were poured in the way they are. So it's not that we're not listening, it's that this whole project hasn't proceeded along the normal sort of approval process where a drawing is submitted and that's where it's going to be. And that didn't happen. You went ahead before those drawings were submitted. And now there's an unfortunate kind of problem. But to say that the porch can't be that long is simply, of course it can. Of course it can. You come in from the side, you don't come in from the front. So.
I don't know. I know what to say.
I think you can still come in from the
I
front.
know what I have to
Just
say.
has to be
I
able.
never started this project to begin with. Even my wife said that. But anyway, I guess we'll just leave the fencing up and maybe I'll just fill in the hole.
I think Charlie's done.
All right. Well,
I can't hear. It's frozen.
Gene, not what we normally do, but I would be happy to sit down with the architect
Right.
and get on the phone and, be specific about where things could go and maybe salvage all this. I don't think it's not beyond reason, but we need a willing applicant.
Charlie, if we can
The
give
willing
guidance to
applicant
your
just spent
architect. and-
about $150,000 taking that ugly, stinking, rotten house that I had with all those ugly awnings and aluminum siding and spent all that money. And then we get down to all it is a one post.
Honestly, it's the combination of the width of the porch, and then the placement of the posts, the 4 posts. It's not just the 1 post, it's the placement of the 4 posts. And I think that's all in connection with what the width of the porch will look like. And we can certainly work with you on that and work with you and understand, and we completely understand the needed headroom to go down to the ground floor. And no one wants you to have something that's unsafe. That's not, no one's ignoring that part at all. I don't want that to be misunderstood. So I know we've been to the property a couple of times. We've made lists of things that should be done. I think the real issue had been is that things were poured before the final design was really permitted.
Right.
Hence, that's why we are where we are. But I think we can still salvage it. And we appreciate all the work that you've done on this property. We know it's gone from, one, the state that it was in, and you're improving it immensely, which we very much appreciate. But we just need to make sure that the finishing part of the porch that is so important, because people will see that every time they go down the street. We want it to be one that's completed in the proper way. So I know before you were working with a different architect. I think maybe there were a couple of different ones. If whoever you're working with right now, we can walk through exactly what needs to be done. We'd be happy to do that.
Yep.
So if
I
you
don't
can
think
let
it's
us
a major-
know when you'd
not a
like to do
major
that, we'd be
adjustment.
happy to.
Not a major adjustment. The porch hasn't even been built yet. So the only thing that needs to be adjusted is the footings, and that it's really not too late to fiddle with that.
Okay, you're gonna have to come there and see it.
I've been there.
Yeah, I don't, well,
I've been there 4 or 5
So-
times.
So Charlie, you can let us know when there's a time that we can come by with your architect and we can get to a, an agreed upon change and then put that in a drawing. So then it will be built the way it should be built.
okay,
So you let us know. You can work with Heather to give us a time that works for you, and we will
Can be done.
we'll set that up so we can keep moving forward.
okay. All
Can
right,
be done.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to table 6 Rector Street. Is that-
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So we're in table 207 Main.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to table 207 Main upon their request. We'll table it to the first meeting in April, which is April 14th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Let's go with this. Let's go with that. That's these to keep in mind springtime. Okay, 81 Suffolk. Anthony?
Yes, good evening, Anthony Vermandois, 68 Union Street. I'm gonna go right to screen sharing, please. Okay. So let's just zoom in here, I guess, a little bit. So Zach, I did read your report. Thank you for that. So
Sure.
I think that the start out with the windows. So I guess, Zach, your conclusion was that even though they are somewhat unusually configured and sized for a house in the
Yeah.
time period, they are original.
I think they are. I mean, I didn't climb up on the roof. I forgot my ladder.
Mhm.
But you're certainly the sashes downstairs through the window panes are the right size.
Yeah.
Stick, all the rest of it. So they appear to be right. I was just a little puzzled by the windows on the second story, which are also of 6/6 configuration, but the pane sizes are smaller. And that's a little unusual. That isn't to say they're not original. I just wasn't up there, but you weren't proposing to deal with them anyway. And I'll tell you, the one interesting feature, which dates the house a little later, is that very interesting lintel. If you go up east, there we go on the second floor. That lintel that just rises up to a slight point and then comes down again, that very subtle little, that tells me
Yeah.
that window opening, okay, that's original. That's like, let's call it 1850. And if the window size is original, then the window sashes are also. So we're just dealing with a quirky house whose windows upstairs were a little smaller.
Okay. Yeah. So then I think, our proposal is going to be then to just keep the windows, keep the 2/2 storm panels, which seems to be how they did the storm panels back then. So okay. So that's all fine. We'll replace the shutters. I don't know if this board has any preference to louvered shutters like there are now, or just 2-panel solid shutters. I think I personally would prefer the solid shutters rather than louvered, but
Well, you have the original shutter hardware upstairs. I don't see it
Yeah.
downstairs, but you have that.
yeah, you could.
There it is right there. And that
Yep.
little casting, that's also an 1850s thing, but they would have been louvered, but of course they're going to be brand new anyway. And so I don't know how the board feels, but they're going to be new shutters, whether they're paneled or louvered is probably not a major point of issue. Maybe whatever your client prefers, but I believe they would have
Okay.
been louvered originally. But do me a favor, Anthony, just to vindicate myself with our last discussion, your drawing shows the porch roof. Your drawing shows the porch roof not getting to the ends of the house. Whereas what we're looking at is actually how it's built. So not that you're planning on reframing the roof of this thing, but I just wanted to point out that your drawing shows it not quite reaching the side walls, and it actually should. So what's interesting is these porch posts, you're not going to see it from a picture, but if you look at them carefully, they're actually sandwiched out of about 3 or 4 different pieces of wood. These are new. Okay. The 4 posts and the fretwork cutout brackets above them are new. They may be pretty faithful repeats of what was there before, but they're not more than 10 years old. The actual brackets that connect back to the house wall itself are original. They're a little thicker, they're a little different, and these guys that we're seeing were patterned after them. So somebody did a pretty good job to rebuild this porch, but I believe the roof is original. So anyway, just had to point that out in passing. So pardon me for interrupting.
Sorry. All right. I'm gonna exit. Okay. One other thing I just want to talk about before I go to the plans. So there are 2 kind of funny chimneys here. They don't connect to fireplaces. I think they're just flue vents. When the house is lifted, I don't, I mean, do you have any objection to these just going away?
Where are they? We don't see them.
I don't see them.
You don't see the photograph I'm showing?
We see the front. We're seeing the front facade.
Just the
I
front.
don't
All right, I'm gonna have to stop sharing.
original
Go
one
back
with-
into sharing.
Okay.
Okay, you see it now?
There you
Yes.
go.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
They don't-
So there are two chimneys here. They're not connecting to fireplaces. They're just flue vents. So I think, rather than trying to save these when we lift the house, I think I'd rather have them just go away if that's not
Sure.
objectionable.
See any reason to, yeah. You'd sort of wonder how they heated the house to begin with, but that we're past that.
Yeah.
That's no longer. No, and you can see the one in the back is built, it seems to be built up a block or something. You see above the
Yeah,
roof.
I think
It's
this
block.
one is brick and then this one is
Brick
just
and that one's
CMU
block.
with a very, very thin coat of stucco on it that's falling off.
Yeah, no, they're not, they don't contribute.
Right. All right. I'm gonna stop sharing again. And just to kind of go into a couple of things on the drawings. So I'll make a note of the chimneys being removed. This is what it is. Yeah. Okay. So this, the porch posts themselves are set in about 18 inches from the from the wall. But to your point, yeah, this actually does the overhang
Not a big thing.
has come out a little bit further.
Mhm.
I just added a specification here, just to dealing with the what we talked about the siding. Just noting that we'll remove the existing asbestos shingles and see what's underneath. Either reuse or replace original siding in kind if it's determinable. If for some reason we can't determine what the original siding is, we would do this in clapboard as per the original submission. That sound good?
Yep.
And
I
then
did-
just one other thing, I think this is the last thing, you had recommended making this little side porch and the addition smaller. So we just made that smaller and it's nicely centered on the door now.
Yeah, I
And
think it's nice.
just a quick question on in the photo, you have the shutters also under the porch, but not here.
Yeah,
So is that, you're not going to have the shutters on the porch windows?
I don't think I would do them under the porch, no.
Okay. No,
just-
I would probably agree, but I just wanted to make sure that was the plan.
Mhm.
Yep. I mean, we'll have them on the sides as well. And this is the little addition here.
Mhm.
Oh, and the other thing, I just specified that brick veneer on the exposed foundation as well.
Right. Not So actually, if the porch, I don't mean to belabor this, but it gets to the point of whether or not you can actually see the brick foundation, so-called, in the front facade. And if the porch actually does extend all the way to the side walls, I don't think you see that brick down at the bottom there on either end, do you? I mean, I think that sits entirely under the porch.
I
I
believe
don't
so,
think you're
yeah.
wrapping it. Yeah, because of course the porch.
Well, actually, the floor of the porch, it's really just this, just the, I was just looking at the photograph here. It's, where am I here? It's really just the overhang of the roof that comes to the edge. The columns and even the deck of the porch itself are set in a little bit from the
Oh, they are.
corners.
Oh, then you will see a portion of the foundation in the
Yeah.
front. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's not uncommon, even though you have nice brick, foundation, it's not uncommon to see the front foundation finished up in some other way because it's going to be hidden under the porch. Sort of like just loose stonework or something of that nature, because the brick is meant to look attractive and be a finish. Whereas if it's hiding under the porch, sometimes it's just laid up in something that's not quite as presentable. But since you come around the corner, you're going to need to see the brick. I
Yeah.
see. Okay. And you're eliminating the railings?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're under 30 inches here, so there's no
Okay.
need for them.
So by the way, they're new also. New, I mean, within the last 10 or 15 years. So I'm saying, getting rid of those railings is not impacting what's historically left of the house. That's your choice. And it may well have never had railings. We wouldn't know, but they're not old. So that's okay.
Okay.
Is that sort of a Dutch door you're doing on the side?
Yeah,
You're-
the side would be a Dutch door, 2-panel on the bottom, just glass on the top.
That's glazed up above.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Not a wood panel. That's a
Right.
glass. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the front door is the existing front door. I'm not sure if the door is original, but we don't have any real plans to change it now. It's just a,
It's not, but it's, it's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it looks very nice.
So I think, Anthony, you were able to address all the changes that Zach highlighted in his note. So I think you have done a good job, and we're comfortable with the 2 chimneys being removed and the shutters being removed on the first floor. And then obviously you replacing upstairs shutters, how you choose.
And the porch will be
Right,
extended.
it's just,
Will the porch
well,
be
the
extended
roof, I mean, this
again
is
or
just
no?
a drafting error on my part. The
Don't
roof
start
will
any
extend out to the
trouble,
corner.
Beth.
Yeah.
Okay. You wouldn't want it to be that.
okay. So,
I move to approve the project at 81 Suffolk Street.
Need a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Where's the- Oh. Hang on a second. What? Maybe Christian was signed too. Just-
Would be the removal of the chimneys.
Yep. I'm trying to figure out. Okay, great. Now we can make a motion to close the old business. No, so we're just going to open up a discussion item. If we have 59 Howard Street.
Well, good evening.
Oh.
Are you ready for me?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for allowing us to have this discussion at such short notice. It was not intended to be such short notice, but it ended up that way. My name is Fred Stell. I'm the father of Tom Stell, who's the owner of the property. And I'm here with his wife, Jackie, and Joseph Darko from our office, and John Hamilton from the office of LaGuardia Design. They're the landscape architects. I don't know how much of this stuff
Welcome.
you. So, hi, Bethany.
Hey.
I'm not sure. Tom is well known to Bethany, having been one of her students years ago. So she knows the whole story. There's no getting around it. What I'm going to do is just go through the material that we gave you. I guess you got it. We dropped it off today. It's
Yes.
both in a disc form and also in drawing form. So I'll go through it. I'll try to not torture you with too much information. And I invite Jackie and Joseph and John to chime in when they think there's something important. So starting with the survey, it's
Fred, I'm
clear.
sorry. If they give me control, I can share the drawings, or if it's
Okay.
easier for everyone, so we're on the same
Yes.
page.
I think that's a great idea, Joseph.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yep, sorry to interrupt you.
Oh.
No problem. That's why I said interrupt me when you think it's right. So the thing that's interesting about the survey, aside from documenting the existing structures, some of which are non-conforming, and they're not non-conforming with regard to setback from zoning, except for the wetlands. And so this is the survey done by David Sconces, and the buildings that are kind of mustard color are the existing structures, and Howard Street is on the bottom. The lot to the right is of Howard Street is a lot owned by the village and the town. I think it was acquired under CPF, I'm not sure. And it has some wetlands vegetation in it. I think it's basically a drainage, kind of a dish created by Long Island Avenue and the more upland properties along Howard Street. Of the structures on the property, they're all non-conforming. The existing buildings, and two of them we intend to take down. The third, the existing house, we intend to do a combination of restoration and renovation. The house from the front, you'll see some pictures that follow this. The house from the front looks pretty well intact.
Mhm.
It's wood shingles with a broad white painted band under the eave of the roof, and 5 openings along the street front. The openings and I think those openings probably have the existing sash in them, existing windows. I'm not sure about the trim. The openings on the side and the back have been, some of them have been compromised, not all of them. We intend also to take off, there was an addition put on the rear of the house, which is a little kind of a vestibule or mudroom, which we intend to take off. so that we pretty much get the house back to whatever its most recent intact iteration was. It looks to me, and Zach will be able to say better than I, that this house might have been built at 2 different periods. And as you know, that there's a great tradition in Sag Harbor of people in the whaling industry building a fairly modest structure to live in when they acquired some property, and then later on in life, after they'd acquired some money, built a larger structure in front that was more of a complete house. I'm not sure that's the case with this, although it looks like it might be. So, and the other thing that's interesting about this that's important is that it's in an AE6 flood zone. And that the good news about that is that, sorry about the noise in the background. The good news about that is we don't have to elevate the house at all. It meets FEMA. It's 2 feet above, it's 2.5 feet above the flood zone. So it can stay where it is. The only thing we will have to do is provide, when we renovate it, we'll have to provide a self-draining function, which I think can be done along the north side. So you have to self-drain the crawl space. There is no cellar under, just a crawl space. I mean, I think that's about it for the survey. About half of the property, if you look at the next image, or about a third of the property is within the wetland setback. The next image is the cover sheet of the drawing set. Joseph, if you can grab that. There we go. So you'll see the black line around the property. The house is in the upper left-hand corner of the property, and the property to the south is the adjacent wetlands. Our goal as we proceed through the process of revegetating the existing lot, 59 lot, is to try to take from the wetlands lot some of the vegetation that exists there, and the type of vegetation, silver maples, and so forth, to revegetate the property on the Howard Street side of the boundary line between the two, so that it looks as if the wetlands property and the Howard Street property are really the same thing. The 59 Howard Street property are the same thing. And that'll be done in the process of restoring native wetlands vegetation there.
Fred,
Yeah.
I hate to interrupt, but I would say, I think for the purpose of this as a discussion, we want to talk about
the architecture.
design and what you're proposing for the house.
Sure.
Yeah. For right now. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I'll move along. The next 2 pages show some images of the structures on the property, some of which are on the second group of images. The second page of images is largely structures that will be removed.
Which ones are going to be removed?
Basically, it's the existing garage and trellis, which is that sort of shacky looking building behind the main structure that's unpainted. And then there's a little shed in the backyard that's going to be removed. So eventually, before any new construction is done, what will remain of the existing house is the gable structure in the front and the shed addition on the back of it, the long shed that's the same length as the gable. The general approach is to try to increase the size of the house to make it livable for Jackie and Tom and what they hope is their growing family. And so the inside of the house is not in very good shape. It's a bit of a shambles. So it's going to require some extensive work on the inside of the house. And one of the things that we would like to do is to put a regular stair in there getting to the second floor. So we plan to add a dormer onto the back roof of the existing house. And then to the side of it, and set back from the street, about I'm guessing about 20 feet from the front edge of the existing house, we plan to put an addition. The addition will be a 2-story addition. It'll be connected by a flat roof connector piece that will serve as the new main entrance of the house. The front door will remain, but the main entrance will be between the new structure and the old structure. We intend to make that 2-story addition a kind of the same width as the existing gable portion of the existing house, which I think, correct me if I'm wrong, was that, Joseph, how wide is that? Is that 18 feet?
It was approximately 18 or 20 feet.
Yeah, so the new addition will be the same width as the existing structure, which you really only see from the end. Same width as the gable piece of the existing structure, and then the roof pitch will be the same as the existing structure, but it's going to be taller because the existing structure second floor is not full height from the front wall to the back wall. So the only sort of standing headroom on the second floor of the existing structure is kind of under the peak of the roof. So we plan to have a full height second story on the new addition. The new addition will be largely bedrooms and a sort of a family room, if you will, and bathrooms. And the existing structure we see trying to restore the front rooms to what I would imagine would have been a dining room and a sitting room with a kitchen in the shed at the back. So that if we go, there's a series of elevation drawings.
Yeah, that's important.
And I won't bore you. I don't know if you want to get into the issue of the placement because it'll still encroach somewhat on the wetland setback. But our plans reduce the encroachment on the wetland setback from 460 square feet to 214 square feet. So it's a reduction in the wetlands setback encroachment. And it's fully inside the existing encroachment of the existing garage structures. There are 2 renderings that follow that diagram which you're looking at, and the 2 renderings show show 59 Howard Street as you approach from the south, with the addition kind of peeking out behind it beyond, the fence restored, and new vegetation planted, including a couple of, we're thinking about magnolia trees to sort of frame the front of the existing structure. The second rendering shows the new structure attached to the old structure, and this shows it not as it will look when it's built, but what we hope it will look like as the vegetation matures. There's a parking space to the right of the new addition off the street, enough space for 3 cars. We didn't want to have parking in front of the house, either the new part or the old part. So this does not encroach on the wetland setback, but it is set off to the side, and there will be a path from that parking area to the new main entrance.
Fred, I just want to, let's just pause for a second, just because we've
Sure.
gone over a lot here, and the first thing that I would say is, given that it is a historical home, and when additions are proposed, we really can't be in a position that the new addition is overwhelming the existing.
Right.
And so the height clearly is an issue. The contrast in the style is also one that we're gonna need to have you think about. We can't just take a whole modern building and attach it to historical building by a connector in the historic district. I'm sure, I've seen these kind of things maybe up on the ocean or in different locations, but that is really not in harmony with the feel of the Sag Harbor Historic District. So I actually would like to ask Zach to opine here, but that's from opening up the discussion points. I feel that I had to address that.
Well, thank you.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
just real quick initial impressions is that if that new addition, rather than being attached to the existing house and sort of going off the back and coming off as an L or something of that nature, where the roof lines actually marry one another and connect. In this proposal, the new structure sits off to the side of the old one. It almost reads as a barn, like a little barn on the property.
Right.
Yeah,
So
that was the intention.
Okay, well, we did not rehearse this. So, but I'm thinking that, and I realize you have setback issues and you've got to work around that. Perhaps there are variances in your future. I don't know. But I would only say initially that the further you can get that addition away from the existing house, the less the height issue is, the less you'll read that. And the more you'll read that new building as a little barn off to the side, toward the back, freestanding, but connected. I do think the actual height of it will probably have to come down. You may be able to do that by widening it so that you can get more volume and more usable space. I don't know. You're the architect. I don't know anything about that. But I'm just visually reading this. It does appear, because it's rather narrow, the front of it is relatively narrow compared to the existing house. And that's the face that you see. And that, I think, does kind of emphasize the height of it, which is actually higher than the house. So those are things that would have to be played with, but I think the form of it is good. The roof pitch is right, and the siding is harmonious. So and even though, I mean, Gene and the board are quite right. I mean, you're in the historic district, but understanding that new construction doesn't need to look old. It doesn't need to present itself as if it was always there. It just needs to be harmonious, and the forms and the siding materials, all that just needs to fit in and relate. So I think on those points, it's looking good, but I think it is a bit tall. So you have to work on that.
Thanks, Zach. I have done work in historic district, and my sort of guiding principle whenever I work in this kind of context has been the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines. And what they speak to is exactly what you said. Not only do they not have to copy or mimic the structure that's there, but they should not copy them and mimic it.
Right.
Because you don't want to confuse the historic record. You want it to be clear that this is an addition to the existing structure, and you don't want to. It's a little bit like going to a party and having somebody mimic the way you speak, right? You would sort of be offended by that, and I think that's true of these projects that copy the existing architecture and don't let it stand on its own. So whether I've achieved that or not, will be up to you to decide. But that's my intent. There are serious setback issues here, and you can see there's a dashed green line going through the structure. That's the wetland setback.
Oh,
so I don't have any room to push it. In fact, we're going to need a variance to be able to keep that amount of encroachment.
I see.
The argument is that, well, we're reducing it from 460 square feet to 216 feet or 14 feet. So that is a problem. That's another reason why we tried to keep the house narrow, and we picked the width of the existing structure. We can look at how we could lower the roof height. Pushing it back is also an issue because, as you can see, the further we go back, the more deeper we get into the wetlands encroachment.
Right.
So we were really trying to thread a needle here.
Mhm.
We could have pushed it forward, and we still can, but then it starts to compete with that issue of, competing with the existing structure, which we're trying to avoid as much as possible.
Mhm.
So I understand that you're also trying to thread a needle here, acknowledging that new construction does happen in a historic district,
Mhm.
and what is the most appropriate way to do it. What I would love, and I did, full disclosure, I did talk to Zach before this meeting, not before the meeting, but I've talked to him in the past, and what he suggested is maybe a couple of members of this board could do a site visit with us to talk about not only this issue, but also some other issues related to the existing house, which I can use some guidance on. For example, the existing windows are not in very good shape. And what's the best way to go about trying to save those? So, and then it would also give you an opportunity to look at the site and see this in the context of the site. So I guess the takeaway for us is to go back and see how we can minimize the frontal height of the building.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's impossible. How much we can do, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm happy to look at it. If there are other issues.
Can I just ask?
Yep.
And we do have to figure out if you need to be going in front of the harbor committee, given the
We definitely
wetland
do.
piece.
We definitely do.
So,
So we have an application before
usually
them, and
very
that's why.
first.
We won't be there until
Right,
April.
and they're only once a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're only once a month, so I understand you coming in, starting the discussion with us, which we are completely comfortable with, and we can come and do a site visit, but I do think it would be wise for you to go to the harbor committee probably before we do the site visit, because we could come up with some possible options and then they become completely overruled. And they really, the order, there's not an exact order, but we cannot go, overrule the harbor committee. That's not our role. Our role is more the aesthetics and how it looks, and and then preserving the historical piece as well we can. Given that the wetlands are more on the right-hand side and in the rear, is there any way you can, and I know there's a maple tree there, but if you could move the addition more behind the house on the left, or I guess it's the north side, so that you can avoid being close to the wetlands, and then I know you have the pool, but maybe you're moving the pool, and I guess you can't dig down because of, maybe you're limited to where you can put the pool because of the depth of the
Groundwater, right?
Water table.
Gene, the other issue is that I should have said this at the very outset. We're proposing to put in and I think it's actually required in the village now, proposing to put in a high performance waste treatment system, which is we pushed along the south property line as far as we can get it. I believe there are setbacks.
That's that depth, right.
Yeah,
okay.
and there's also setbacks from that, which are required. If you look at where the pool is, that's how far away it has to be from that waste treatment system.
Oh.
So the backyard gets fraught with all of these, you know, all of these requirements. I think, you know, I think that the high performance waste treatment system is important. I was a promoter of them and helped to publicize them for the Nature Conservancy a few years ago. And so I think it's very important to our water quality and to our quality of life out here. So it's a real juggling act, and that's why I think if we could, I agree with you. I wouldn't pretend to invite you to come to the site until we've had a review with a harbor committee. We also will need a variance for this particular approach. So we have to go before the zoning board for that. So we're juggling a lot of balls here. My real intention was to understand what, you know, your primary concerns were going to be.
Sure.
Because we're going to probably have some of the same discussions with the other boards as well about thinking about other ways of doing this.
And when we completely understand the challenges that the property brings because of the FEMA rules and the wetland. I mean, it's just the same as when someone has an odd shaped lot. You in essence have an odd shaped lot because of the wetlands, right? It impacts what your options are and where you can do it. So I think we would be happy to set up a site visit, and as I'm sure you're aware, preserving the windows is a goal. As long as, you know, when Zach comes and looks at them and we see if they're able to be restored, that would be a goal.
Some of them have been reglazed.
So that would be.
Sorry, some of them have been reglazed, but I believe some of them also have perhaps historical glass in them or older glass in them. Yeah. So I mean, that's exactly
Okay.
and the other issue is what the colors of the structures. My color palette ranges between white and black, and that's about it. I mean, I like materials to look the color that they naturally are, brick and bluestone and other stones and stuff. But for us, I think Jackie and Tom would love to see the houses be dark. And so we haven't fully decided on what that approach would be. But as I said, Mike, I loved your first discussion.
It's, natural wood.
Well, no, probably.
But is it natural wood?
Now?
The new addition?
No, we would probably stain it dark. That would be our preference.
I think that would help differentiate the new, you know, from the old. If you treated the old house in a traditional manner, you know, paint it white or pale yellow or, you know, whatever.
Well, that's exactly what I was thinking, but I haven't cleared that with my clients.
Well,
yeah,
do that over the Thanksgiving table. But then if the new, right, no seconds for you. But
you get a second story.
Yeah, right. So, and that would further differentiate, you know, the old from the new, and I think that's a good design approach.
That's what I was actually thinking seriously, Jack, was that the front house would be light. It is now, and we would keep it light. I'm not sure we'd keep it the same color lightness. I think it's kind of a beigey light, and I'm not a big beige fan. But if it was a paler color, and the rear structure was dark, as if it were a kind of a agricultural building, or that was exactly my intent.
Yeah,
and that's why if you look at the elevation, there's not a lot of windows in the elevation, that front elevation of that the new structure. There's only one, in fact.
Right.
You know, like as if it was kind of like a, you know, door to a hayloft or something. And the siding on the existing house is, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The siding on the existing house is stained wood shingles. And we were proposing a vertical dark stained wood siding on the new part, which accentuates its height. And maybe that's a mistake. Maybe that should be horizontal too.
Hmm.
Probably.
Sorry?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
about a 5-6 foot difference in height right now between the two structures.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah, that,
And we don't have super high ceilings. It's about, I think it's 9 foot downstairs and 8 upstairs. So it's not a very tall structure.
The
mm,
yeah, that
we understand that it's not tall, it's just
Taller.
relative
Taller.
to
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
existing historical, which has to, take priority. And then, that's the challenges of buying a historical home.
Mhm.
yeah, what
And
we
not-
could do, Gene, too, is to put up a story pole, because that, if we do a site visit, because that might show what the relative heights look like. As you stand at the street, the foreshortening or the perspective will make the rear building seem shorter than the front building, because the front building is more in your foreground.
Right.
Right.
So the elevations are
we,
truthful, but
Mhm. Yep.
and I agree, being there and looking at it on the ground is always very helpful. I'm just trying to think of the best use of your time, and we can come once and we can come a second time. We would be happy to do that. I'm
Mhm.
just thinking the harbor committee really has to give their opinion of where they're going to permit it.
to
And
be
that's,
cited.
those are just rules. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't have anything to do with that. We respect their judgment. So you let us know once you're on the harbor committee, and we'd be happy to come if you'd like us to come before, and we could get, kind of do a dry run. But I honestly think it'll be a better use of everyone's time to do it after you meet with
Yeah,
them.
that's fine. I don't think it has to be done before the harbor committee. I think that I want to go in and get the kind of the harbor committee's unvarnished point of view. And then we'll try to thread that, as I said, thread that needle. And then, as I said, I think that there's no way to get it. I don't think you can get a discussion on the ZBA, can you? I
No.
don't think they do that. Most CBAs, but maybe they do. And if they do, I'll
No.
probably do that too.
Mhm.
And if both harbor committee and ZBA say no way, then we'll have to rethink it. And given these
And,
comments.
Okay, great. I mean, it's a exciting project that you're taking on for sure. It's
Yes.
just a bit of a jigsaw puzzle in trying to
Yes, it is.
fit all the
It's a-
pieces in.
It's
So-
a great spot. And I mean, of course, at the end, my interest is not only, excuse me, my interest, of course, at the end is to have the quality of the space and the light and the architecture and the function of the buildings feel like it should, and feel like it's the right solution for that site
Mhm.
from an environmental and aesthetic point of view. And
No, we-
that's why
we
the
very much
L-shaped
appreciate
scheme
that.
seems to work.
Okay. All right,
Okay,
well,
well-
we look forward to continuing the conversation, and we'll, as soon as you're on the harbor committee, if you want to give Heather some potential dates for us to then come and see the property afterward, we could begin to try to set those dates up.
Great.
And we can go from there.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate
Good.
your taking the time.
Very nice. Yep.
Nice
Thanks to all your
presentation.
team, Jackie, Fred, and.
Thank you.
everyone.
Okay,
Good to
Yes,
see
all
you.
right.
We'll talk.
Good night.
Well, good night.
Good night.
Yep. in discussion, and then we'll make a motion to close the meeting. Bethany?
To adjourn.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Beautiful.
Thanks, everyone. Everyone have a great evening.